Before I do anything regarding the intro, I want to give a fair warning that these stories I'm going to talk about do deal with a lot of heavy topics, such as PTSD, blood, self harm, depersonalization and realization, drugs, divorce, attempted suicide, gender dysphoria, and body dysmorphia. So if you feel uncomfortable in any way regarding these topics, I recommend clicking off this video or listening to these specific stories on screen. And with that little warning out of the way, I want to get right into the first entry, which is called Come On, Let's Get Something Wrong by A Gay Joke. Being the most recent post, I think, it was published on September 3rd, 2025, and tells a story about men having a nightmare, but waking up covered in blood on the floor because Dia tackled her. And I want to go over these stories without revealing too much. A lot of these are going to be like really short paragraphs. And speaking of short, for something that's relatively short in of itself, it moved me a lot, honestly, within the short time it did have. Seeing how both Min and Dia reacted to and handled the situation is how I think they would deal with the situation in the game, which I kind of appreciate. Honestly, I give it a 9 out of 10, because I really wish it was a little bit longer, but overall it's an amazing story. Another entry from A Gay Joke is something called Damn is a Band, where Dia, Carson, and Noel, respectively, become a band. It balances two stories. The story of them being 16, touring and doing shows, and the present, where Dia got into an argument with Min, and she decided to just leave and go back to her parents' house and stare at the ceiling, reminiscing about the past. In this present story, Akar surprised Dia off her bed and drives her to the studio where the rest of them are. And on the road there, Dia tells Akarsa that she's been trying drugs before every show to help calm her nerves. However, Dia failed to tell Akarsa that she wanted to leave the band. She never imagined it'd get this popular, and they'd actually be opening for bands at genuine venues on stage. It just became all too much for her, but she felt like she couldn't tell anyone because of how successful they've become. I mean, after all, they have enough money to retire at 23, and they have adoring fans, so she couldn't just up and quit. Also, seeing how Noelle interacted with Dia during the second installment was really nice. She showed how much she cared for Dia, even all these years later, now that they're all 29 and 30. Seeing a peek into the characters' lives, knowing Dia lost 70% of her hearing due to the loud shows, knowing Min still makes music just solo, knowing Akarsa's a Twitch streamer and Noelle's in the computer science field was kind of heartwarming in a way, honestly. I could see all of them doing those kind of careers. If you're looking for a deep read, but also something that's not too crazy long, I recommend this one. I give it a 9 out of 10, only because I'm slow and got lost in some parts, and I wish it was longer. And with this last entry by A Gay Joke, we have I Won't Quit on You. It delves deeper into Min's gender dysphoria and body dysmorphia and takes place during the sophomore year of high school for the group. And I honestly love all the attention to detail within the story. And I'll bring this up almost every fanfiction that I read in this video in some sort of fashion, but all the characters act so real in this story. Like, one detail that caught my eye was when someone placed a cold water bottle on Min's neck. They were ready to cuss them out, but when they found out it was Dia, all that disappeared in an instant, and all that hate turned to happiness and joy, honestly. It reminds me of how in the first game, when you're playing as Dia in the first chapter, you find out Min used to put staples and paper shurikens and throw them at people. Everyone except Dia, of course. It's honestly a highly detailed, intricate story, in my opinion, of Min's whole situation that we learned about during the second game. Minor spoiler here, but seeing her snap at Akarsa, like, genuinely for once, felt sort of refreshing in a weird way, because you've never seen them do that before in the games, at least not to their friends, right? You've seen that happen to other kids, just not their close friends. Another thing I really liked was when Dia was cutting their hair, they asked Dia what she saw when she looked at them, but Dia flipped the question. Min answered by saying that Dia was her son, bright, keeping her alive and filling their heart with longing when gone. So Dia answered by saying that Min was her moon, providing light when there was none. A rough exterior, but still beautiful to her. And without spoiling too much of this honestly beautiful piece of work, the bonding between Dia and Min was super heartwarming. Dia was genuinely the most heartwarming character ever, and I highly recommend this story, even if you don't know the characters of Butterfly Suit. I give it a 10 out of 10. Honestly, before we get into this next part, I'll give y'all a little bit of a break, so you can regroup, grab your snacks, refill your drinks, whatever you guys do, and we'll be right back with this next section. Okay, welcome back, and now we're gonna start the next section. Probably the first short one for this video is called Girl, You Should Be at the Speakeasy by Straight Chillin' 1607. It's currently incomplete, but could possibly still be receiving updates because the latest chapter was added in June, and with the shaky upload schedule, that's kind of matches mine, it wouldn't deter me from thinking it could receive more updates in the future, and I'll keep y'all posted. Most of you probably heard the word speakeasy and questioned if that was a real word in the dictionary, but it takes place in the 1920s, so a speakeasy essentially is just a secret bar where they would sell alcohol, because it was legal back then. But this tells the story of Dam in the 1920s in New York, when Noelle unknowingly walks into a bar where alcohol was sold in secret, like I told you earlier, because it was legal back then. And later that night, Carson invites Noelle to a party that was happening at a local speakeasy. That's where the story ends. Honestly, even with the little that I have to go off of, I still give it a 10. I recommend it, and it's probably one of my favorite works that I've read, but we're going to get to that later. Keeping the train going with entries from Straight Chillin' 1607, this next one is called Do You Realize? And it was honestly one of the saddest ones I've read for this video. It tells the story of a very old Noelle in the hospital bed struggling with cancer, having Dia comfort her in her final moments. And without spoiling too much from this honestly amazing story, it was one of my favorites to read, and I say that about a few stories, but I give this one a 10 out of 10. I highly recommend it. Another one from Straight Chillin' 1607, we have a Christmas-based story called 'Tis the Season to Get Tipsy. It's about Noelle inviting the group over to her house for a Christmas party, but as Noelle fixes problems upstairs, Carson is downstairs making mulled wine for the group. I don't really know how to explain what mulled wine is because I don't really remember, but look it up. Like a few other stories in this video, however, it remains unfinished, but it seems it was supposed to be a 5-chapter long story, but it only has 3 chapters under its belt. Honestly, don't know how I feel about this story, which is kind of shocking, so I'll give it a middle of the road 5 out of 10. Not bad, but not the best either. Excuse me, kind of burp. Another Straight Chillin' 1607 fanfic. This is Noelle related, however. It's called Homosexual with a capital O. I was kind of reluctant to start this story as I was fishing for more to read, but I started when I had nothing better to do, and it was amazing. It tells the story of Noelle noticing the beauty of Akarsa and wondering what she was feeling after being fixated on her beauty for such a long time during class. And while hanging out at the dog park with the rest of the group, Min says something that rings in Noelle's head and finally explains what she's feeling. It's a good story, so I give it a 7 out of 10. Our 5th and final story from Straight Chillin' 1607. It's called Coldest Winter. I loved that story and I picked it purely because of the name. I didn't really remember anything about it before I started reading it. It's a story about a friendship built between Noelle and Min, of all characters, during their childhood. It's honestly really interesting, and while being another incomplete work with only 2 out of the 10 chapters needed, I moved my mic. It's a really interesting story. Seeing the influence Min had on Noelle is cool to me. Watching as Min drags Noelle along on their usual antics without all of the complaining and things like that from Noelle was nice. A neat part I liked about this fanfic was that it introduced Noelle's dad into the story, which I've never seen before in a fanfic, and I don't think I've ever seen later. Seeing him be the nicer, more chill parent compared to how harsh and rude her mother is was very nice. He seems like a nice dad, and because of that, I'll honestly give it a 9 out of 10. And with that, the Straight Chillin' 1607 section is over. Again, I don't know if you finished your snacks already. Go grab some more. Take a break. Stretch your legs. Whatever you guys do, and I'll be right back with more short one-offs. This next fanfic is called Last Chance by Airgear. This was written way back in November of 2024. This one is a bit interesting to me because it tells you in the prologue that it's disregarding everything that happened in Butterfly Soup 2 and adds a bit more slow burn and teenage angst into the relationship that Akarsa and Noelle have. It takes place during the senior year of the group, and Akarsa gets invited to a party that Noelle was invited to by Min. Now, if you've ever played the game for Butterfly Soup 2 or have ever seen anybody play it, you know Noelle is the farthest thing from a party goer, so it was a bit of a shock for Akarsa to get an invitation from her. Without spoiling too much from the story, Dia, Akarsa, Min, and Noelle all make it to the party, but Noelle faces a bit of trouble and Akarsa helps her with that. It keeps all of Noelle's awkwardness and Akarsa's weirdness, but also seriousness, stayed true to the source material of the first and second game, and made a new story out of that. And I know that whole idea is nothing new, but seeing that for a game I care so deeply about hits different. For example, the way Akarsa and Noelle text and talk seems like it's coming straight from the game, and I honestly love that. Even with the little time Dia and Min had, they acted like how I'd expect them to in those situations, and I applaud the character on that. Sadly, it looks like Chapter 6 wasn't supposed to be the end, but this hasn't been updated since its release well over a year ago. So I don't think it'll be finished anytime soon, but hopefully they see this video and they finish it. But from what is here, I have to give it a solid 10 out of 10. If you're looking for something medium length yet serious and detailed to sit down and read, this is the fanfic you're looking for. Also, I know it's the first fanfic I've read related to Butterfly Soup, but this is what I want Butterfly Soup 2 to be like. Not them too crazy far into life, but also not taking place immediately after the second game. A sweet middle ground. This next short entry is called Kiss and Makeup by Velrights and was submitted in 2017. The short fact about this fic is that it was written before Butterfly Soup 2 came out, meaning it was written before Akarsa and Noelle had officially got together. But it's a short story about Akarsa comforting Noelle after taking one of her pranks too far. Honestly, the only part that didn't make sense to me was the prank itself, but that's for you to read and find out. I'd give it an 8 out of 10, a good short read. Another relatively short one is called 3 out of 4 by Witch Wife. This story is about Akarsa passing away during a car accident and Noelle dealing with the grief of the situation. I like how the format of the story is told in this day-by-day kind of deal. And I can't really say much because of how short the story is, but definitely go read it. Probably the last short one is called Celestial Bodies by Pavlovin. And it tells the secret story between Junso and Hayden in this Son of Moon kind of deal. This one was super short, like not even 1,000 words. But that's to be expected because we know very little about Junso and even less about Hayden. But I always had a feeling they would date or at least be super duper close friends in the future. And finding a fanfic about Hayden and Junso was like super rare, so I was excited to read it. I definitely recommend. I give it an 8 out of 10. This next story comes from Friendly Grape and is titled Surreal. It tells the story of Noelle's character and how she suffers from derealization and depersonalization during her sophomore year. However, it's been happening more and more often recently, and after hearing devastating news from her dad, it happens again. This time worse than before, and she calls Akarsa over to help her. Without revealing too much about this story, but still giving you guys enough to pique your interest, It's a detailed story about Akarsa Noel and how Akarsa can be serious when needed and isn't goofy all the time. I have seen some fics depict her that way. I really recommend this story. I give it an 8 out of 10. I want all of you to go read it if you can. Another entry from a new face. This is called The Beginning of Something More by The Real Need Noogle. It tells a dark story of Akarsa's life and how she struggles with self-harm. I went to this blind without reading the summary, and seeing that it starts off with Noel pranking Akarsa, I thought it was going to be a sweet story, but I was wrong and it quickly took a turn. It starts off intriguing with, again, Noel pulling a prank on Akarsa by taking her shirt while she's in the changing room. But when she goes to check on her, she notices cuts on Akarsa's arm and deep red scratches on her upper arm. She immediately runs to comfort Akarsa and helps her feel better. That's obviously a short summary, and in my opinion, it's a 9 out of 10. It's a good read. Getting into a little bit of vampirism with this next entry. Actually, it's a series of entries, I stand corrected, under the title of Vampire Noel AU. For those people not in the fanfiction world, AU means alternate universe. This series is brought to you by Gay in the Modern Meaning. This series kind of explains itself with the title, but this series, Noel was born as a vampire, but hasn't told Dia, Akarsa, or Min about any of this. I really like this story, albeit confusing, because 1, it's a unique fanfiction about a character being a vampire, and 2, the storytelling was shaky at times, but it still made me feel intrigued. Like I needed to finish the story no matter what. This is Modern's first fanfiction, so I'll be a bit lighter in the rating and ranking, but honestly, even with the few typos and misspellings, it's really good, and I still give it a solid 8. This next entry comes from another new face who goes by the name of Aleph6. This story is called Why Didn't You Stop Me? And tells the story of Akarsa and Noel. It's honestly really interesting because unlike the other Akarsa and Noel focused stories where they start off dating, or at least the ones I've read, it's their senior year and Akarsa's trying to forget about her feelings towards Noel after confessing in the gym during their second game didn't go as planned. It's the group's last summer break together, and Min puts together a little road trip for them to enjoy the last bits of summer before everyone goes off to college and does God knows what. There's a lot of teen awkwardness between the two, which not only adds hints of humanism, but also something I feel like the characters would do. Noel felt very in character for this story. A great example is when she was walking with Dia to grab food and finally admitted that she liked Akarsa, but she struggled to admit it because she was worried what her mother would think. Again, I'm trying not to spoil so much while going over these, so I'm just going to give this a 9 out of 10 and end this section right here before I say way too much. Another one from a fresh face. We have a series where Dia, Akarsa, and Noel go to med school, and it's written by Letters and Punctuation. It's honestly heartwarming and unique. Not only does it show Akarsa's smart side, it shows both the relationship between Dia and Min and the relationship between Noel and Akarsa. Although one trait I have seen across almost all of the fanfics I've read is the fact that Dia wasn't really talked about. Now, obviously, this is just my interpretation of things and how I see it, but they never really took the time to delve into Dia's character. He was just sort of there for most stories. I was kind of hurt because he's the most interesting character in my opinion. And that is until this story. Without saying a lot, Dia's character is really opened up and shared. It's a good read that I recommend. I give it a 9 out of 10. And with that, I want to reward you guys. You guys have made it to the very last fan fiction of this video. And I don't want to drag this out. It's already super long. So let's just get this started. This one is called Runners at Your Corner by Destiny Smasher. It tells the story of Dam in college while Dia deals with the fact that Min is in county jail for battery after a fight during Thanksgiving. Chapter 4 is a really interesting one to me because you see how much Noel cares not only for Dia, but the entire group, including Min. And that's very evident in how she went about comforting Dia in a way that she knew Akarsa couldn't. And I say that in no way to discredit Akarsa, But as Noelle stated within the story, she lacks some things when it comes to comforting Dia, because she doesn't know her as well as Noelle knows Dia. But one thing I do kind of want to say, I'll say that for later. Also, the text conversations between Noelle and Akarsa was something I found interesting, and by that I kind of mean how they handled it. Seeing Akarsa interject with her usual freakiness, only for Noelle to match it and honestly outmatch it, was something I wasn't expecting to see, but it made a lot of sense when they explained it. That she only says those things because she's stressed, and the more stressed she is, the freakier it gets. But don't ask why that's something I chose to highlight. Although if I may say one thing I dislike about this story, without being too harsh about it, is the fact that they went back to using she/her pronouns on Min. I feel like Min wouldn't just go back to using their old pronouns without a sound reason, and it feels like a random throw-in. And another thing I kind of dislike is how in Chapter 5, Akarsa was never really serious, in my opinion. She was always joking about something, even when apologizing to Dia about something serious, and so serious, in fact, Akarsa was thinking that maybe she ruined the friendship between her and Dia. I just wish this fanfic took her more seriously, at least in this chapter, because it's not like she isn't capable of being serious when it needs to. And I guess it just ticked me off a lot because I see so much of myself in Akarsa. And I see why they made Akarsa like that, but it really only works when you isolate one thing from the entire story. And I kind of had this in my notes about something about Noelle talking to Akarsa, but that happened in the second game, and I realized the chapter was made before the second game came out. So I apologize for almost dissing you on that. However, they do redeem this with the situation between Min and Akarsa. How do I put this? In Chapter 6, Akarsa helped Min with a little mini moral dilemma that she had, and the way she went about it was very interesting and sweet, in my opinion. She got super real and personal without attacking Min. And even on the off chance that she did, or Min took it as like an attack to her, she quickly apologized. And I praise them for that fact. They kind of redeemed themselves with my past angerment, I guess. I don't really know the word off the top of my head. Honestly, this whole situation kind of reminded me of the breakdown Clay had in More Oral, if you've seen that. But if it was a conversation between two people and not just Oral tweaking out himself in the bar, if that makes sense. And now that the video's over, I want to tell you about my top 3 stories, which are, in first place, Do You Realize by Straight Chillin' 1607. In second place, Last Chance by Airgear. And in third place, last but not least, I Won't Quit on You by Airgear. I won't talk about them because I already talked about them in the video, but these are the most fun I had reading and struck me the most emotionally while reading them. Also, huge props to all the creators that helped me make this video. Airgear, Straight Chillin' 1607, Airgear, Vel Writes, Witch Wife, Pav Loving, Friendly Grape, The Real Need Noogle, Gay in the Modern Meeting, Aleph 6, Letters and Punctuation, Autumn Dragon, and Destiny Smasher for making such amazing stories. I know you probably won't ever see this video, but I wish you all good health. That is kind of like the first outro done. And I just want to let you into a little fun fact. I read 141,000 words for this video. That is the most words I've ever read for a non-school project. And honestly, I loved every second of it. I didn't expect to. I thought it was going to be the most boring, trivial thing I've ever done in my life, but I kind of made a bond with reading fan fiction. It was honestly really nice. The first one I ever read was kind of like my persona, and I mean that in the sense that when I first played Persona, I'd never played a turn-based game ever, and I hated turn-based games before that. But I played Persona, and now I love turn-based games. The first fanfiction I ever read about butterfly soup made me fall in love with fanfiction, and I kind of thank you for that. Keeping this kind of sentimental train going, this is going to be my 17th video. I'm kind of surprised I made it this far without going insane, and I do realize that 17 isn't a lot, but for your average high schooler, 17 videos is a lot for me. I've evolved a lot from my first ever official video on butterfly soup, and seeing my videos go from one take, low quality videos made on a laptop to scripts I've fully fleshed out, done in multiple takes, having slightly higher quality videos made on a PC, I can still tell I have a lot more room to grow and explore different editing styles and recording, but it's just kind of heartwarming seeing how far I have come in 17 videos. My 1 year plan is that by this day, October 18th, 1 year from now, I will have 2K subscribers. That's not a lot, but I'm not shooting too high. And thank you to the small few who genuinely sit down and watch my videos and are like recurring viewers, and to the even smaller few who give me feedback because you know me in real life. It's kind of stupid to make this sentimental kind of thing this early in my career, well, if you can even call it that, but you never know when life is just gonna go south. So why not make this kind of thing now, But that's all the yapping out of the way. It's been nice talking to you. See you at 6, closing that for the night. See ya. Over and out.